need to take a bit of time to answer a question, or you just say something you don't want in, you just let me know and I can take it out.
Awesome. That's great. And then is there a way that I could get the recording as well to share it on my podcast?
Yeah, I could send you.
And I'll edit it and stuff and then talk and like shout you out and have people go follow you.
Yeah, well, once I do end this recording, you have the whole recording too, so you can use it. I don't care. Or if
Oh,
you
okay.
want,
I never do it on, I usually do it on Zoom, not Skype. So naturally if you're recording it, can
I
I
only
record
get
at the
the
same
recording.
time?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, right now we are technically both recording, so
Oh,
everything that's
okay.
recording you get. But I mean, I can also. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure I could find a way to send you like everything I edit and then put together. I could send you that too. So,
oh, that's
either
okay.
way
No, I don't
works.
mind. Yeah, I mean, we'll see when we end the call. If I have the recording, then we're fine. If I don't, I've never done it through Skype before. That's why I usually do it through Zoom. So I wasn't
Okay.
sure. But yeah, okay, whatever.
But yeah, other than that, do you have any other questions?
No, I'm assuming you're just gonna ask like kind of basic questions, right? And we'll.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not very smart, so I can't really
No.
get any more in depth in general. So,
Yeah, no, no, no. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I'm excited.
okay, great. So, to get started, do you just want to give us your background as far as degrees, experience, why you decided to get into the health and nutrition field?
Sure. It's a little bit long of an answer because it's multi-layered, but I'll do
We
my
got
best.
time. We got time.
So I am a registered dietitian. My name is Toni Marinucci, and I'm a business owner of Diet Tips with Toni. And I started my business a little over a year ago. Prior to that, I was blogging on the side for free, just giving out nutrition information because of the fact that I feel like we live in a society where all the knowledge is out there. It's all on Google. But one, how do we apply it? And two, how do you sift through it to know that this is actually attainable for me and what I should be listening to, or if in fact it's even true? And so I decided to go to school to become a registered dietitian because we are, it's a 5-year program to get your degree. We're considered more of the nutrition experts in the field. Everything's based off science. And I really just wanted to figure out like what is true about nutrition and what's not, and like what should I be teaching others and what should I be applying to my own lifestyle, because I personally grew up very overweight, insecure, and kind of struggled with poor self-body image issues and not really feeling confident or comfortable in my skin. But also not feeling like I was able to express it because of the fact that my sister was someone who struggled with mental illness. And I mean, I remember it started really young. Like when I was in the second grade, so I was 7 at the time, I got called to the principal's office because I was told that my sister, who was 5 and in kindergarten at the time, had ran away from school. And they were asking me if I knew where she went or why she would run away. And I was like, I have no idea. Little did I know that that was only the beginning to her temper tantrums, kind of calls out for help, suicide attempts, aggressive behavior. Later, as she got older, turning to drugs and alcohol and lies and cheating and stealing. And, there was just so much going on from her. And like, I just never felt like there was room for me to share about my nutrition, like my problems with feeling overweight and not feeling confident in my skin, because I kind of just felt like I had to keep it together, right? My sister was struggling. I felt responsible. I felt like at the age of 7, when I was asked, how can I help her? That was now my new role. My new role was, how do I help her? Like, why is she doing this? And trying to figure that out. So for a while, I kind of tried to figure out my nutrition on my own while trying to also help her, never really facing it, and then unfortunately that led me down a path of kind of handling nutrition in the wrong way. And now I'm a lot more educated about it. I can look back and realize, wow, what I was doing was so wrong. But in the time, it just like, I didn't know what else to do. So I would do things like just not eat for a few days. I had no energy at all. I played sports. Even though I was overweight, I was still very active and I had no energy to play sports. My grades were slipping. And then obviously when you don't eat, you end up overeating as a result, right? So I started, then I would overeat and on like anything I can get my hands on. And basically that would lead me to feel like, well, it gets a little complicated, right? Then it's like, okay, now you have all this food in you. What do you do? And so I always wanted to throw up. I never could throw up. So I would exercise to a point of like, I'd come back from basketball practice and just start exercising and exercising. And basically this is like the whole, I mean, and it only got worse, unfortunately, before it got better. But until I finally realized, like, this can't be the way. Like, I know that if people who eat healthy and exercise are happy, this is not me. Like, I am not happy. Like, I just feel like I have the world on my shoulders. I'm depressed. I hate when I look in the mirror. I wasn't popular. I didn't have any boys give me any attention. I never had a boyfriend until I was like 18 years old. I just really felt like this can't be the way. So I started doing little things like, drinking more water, adding more vegetables to my plate, speaking up to my parents, who I love very much, who are Greek and Italian and make really good food, and saying, like, you know what, can we maybe not, can we like always have a vegetable at dinner? Or, after basketball practice, I know that you're probably real tired, Mom, and you don't feel like cooking right now because you just cooked for the whole family. But like, can we not go to the fast food restaurant? And like, I would just kind of speak up about things and slowly started to change my habits and realize, you know what, now I'm on to something. And so that's when I realized, okay, now I need to learn more about this, because I'm realizing the small changes over time are making me feel better, happier. I have more energy. I was more in control. And I realized like I was actually able to handle and manage the stress that was going on with my sister. And then unfortunately, later on, my best friend, which I would love to kind of talk about, because a lot of what I do is actually devoted to her now that my sister is actually much better. But so yeah, so I mean, I don't know how much time we have and why, but basically it started from one place of why I became a registered dietitian and what I do. But through life experiences, growing up, just dealing with everyday stresses in life, I kind of utilize nutrition and exercise as a positive outlet once I finally figured out kind of how to do it the right way. And noticing that it's helped me tremendously in kind of just everything that I do in my life. And I really believe that it's the foundation that drives my success today.
Was your sister ever diagnosed with anything specific?
She actually, I mean, right, technically she was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, but like they were never, we could have sworn she was bipolar, because I mean, the temper tantrums were crazy. Like it was just this, like, I can't really explain it in any other way. Like, I mean, glass breaking, like yelling, screaming, cops at the house all the time. But then like fine the next second. So she was technically diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and she was prescribed medication. And now today, and I'm not an advocate for telling anyone to take medicine or not or anything like that. I think that if you're prescribed it for a reason. And if you're going to work on lifestyle factors to kind of wean yourself off of it, that's kind of what she's practicing right now. Is she's still taking the medicine, but she's trying not to be dependent on it, under a doctor's care, and really trying to knowing her body, knowing she needs to exercise daily to keep her mood in check. She needs to constantly be doing positive things for her mind, and she's trying. I'm not, to be honest, I don't know if I even like want to talk to that point, because I'm not confident yet that this is something she should be doing. But she has grown tremendously, and I'm very proud of her, because I mean, growing up, I never really had a sister. I really felt like, she lied, she cheated, she was causing all the problems. And I was just like, I could never trust her. Whereas today, I really do feel like I have a special relationship with her, and she's grown a lot, and she hasn't had a big like temper tantrum or anything. I mean, as you get older, it becomes a lot worse, right? So she hasn't done anything illegal, let's say, in about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah. So
yeah, as far as the medication goes, it is a tricky thing to talk about, because there's people that aren't on medication that should be,
right.
And for whether it's financial reasons or whatever it is, they're not. There's people on it that probably shouldn't be, but a lot of people unfortunately are on medication because it's just a very easy thing to it's easier than it should be to get.
Yeah.
And then there's people that are on it that could benefit, but could also benefit even more without being on medication and just going a more natural route. So it definitely is a tricky thing to talk about, especially when you're not, a doctor.
Yeah,
to that sense.
To be honest, like it's very similar with things like cholesterol medication and diabetes medication that I work with a lot of my clients, right? And so they might start with me and they might be on this medicine, and we know lifestyle factors are driving the high cholesterol numbers. We know that their blood sugars are out of control if they're type 2 diabetic because of their diet and exercise regimen or sleep or stress. Like there's so many things that go into it. And so whenever I'm working with someone, I let them, I'm making sure that we're communicating with the doctor. I have a good picture of, sometimes like people just have high cholesterol and no matter what you do, their cholesterol is up. And so they may need to take that medicine because if they don't, they can have a heart attack and it's very serious. Whereas other people, it's like, okay, as we start to help them lose the weight, improve their nutrition, increase their fiber, decrease their fats and their sugars, and we see those numbers improve, now we can work on slowly getting them off the meds, right? But it's something that we're doing, it's closely monitored, and it's something that, every individual that I work with is very different. And so I think everyone listening to this should recognize that, if you are considering weaning yourself off your medicine or taking medicine or not sure if what you're doing is correct, always talk to the people close to you that know you the best, like your doctor or your therapist or your psychiatrist or whoever it is that you work with, and kind of bring that up and kind of talk about it and do anything slow. Slow progress is always better progress.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that's good advice. Do you want to now get into the story about your friend and how she impacts what you do now?
Sure. So growing up, I had a really good friend. Her name was Alana Davidson, and I was a friend with her in high school through another friend. And to be honest, in high school, she was using drugs, and I was not someone who ever even tried drugs or, experimented in that. And so I was a little confused, to be honest, why my friends who I associated with wanted to kind of be her friend. But then I got to know her, and she actually cleaned herself up. She used heroin. She has a really crazy story, and it's really sad of like how she grew up. And that's I feel like another podcast, but she started using at a very young age and she struggled with that. And then when she was 16, that's when I kind of befriended her. She actually cleaned herself up. And so then I started to get to know her as that person that I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand why my friends would want to be friends with her. Like, she's hysterical, she's funny, she's caring, she's giving, she's just that person that you can call at any time and will be there for you. She was just a really, really great person. And so I got to know her well. We went off to college, and she had relapsed, and she went all the way through Binghamton. She graduated Binghamton University with honors and graduated and felt so good. She actually said to me, I don't feel like I deserve this. Like, I don't feel worthy of success. I don't understand. Like, I just don't know how to handle this. I've never been so happy. And that is actually what made her start using it again. And till this day, I still can't quite understand it. Like, I have problems trying to understand this, but I process it every, on a regular basis. But so, I mean, she started using again, and she went back into rehab, and she went to rehab for, I would say, it was like 3 or 4 months. And when she got out of rehab, she felt like she had taken a step back. She had graduated college. She had a really great internship with BuzzFeed, and she was doing really, really awesome things. But then that's when things were going really well for her, and she started using again. And she basically ended up back into rehab. And when she came out, she felt like, here I was graduating. At this point, I was getting my master's in nutrition. I had, was finishing up to become a registered dietitian. Our other really good friend was going to school to be a nurse. Like, she kind of just felt like she got out, and like, here she was supposed to be like on top of her class doing all these great things. She had this great internship that unfortunately she had to end because she had to go to rehab, and she just didn't feel like, she felt like she could never catch up. And so, I mean, I'll never forget it. She sent me a message. She said to me, she texted me and she's like, I'll always love you, right? And I said, yes, of course. And in my studies, like, I was studying, I had a paper due at midnight that night. I was completely like, of course I love you. Like, that. Like, we've been there for you. We would call her when she was in rehab. Whenever she could call us, we would make sure we were there for her. And so we were just like, yes, of course. And the next day, I got a phone call from my mother friend that she had taken her life. And she purposely overdosed, and she left a letter, and kind of explaining just how she just felt like she couldn't win this battle, and she just never felt like she would ever be able to live up to like this amazing person that I think we all saw in her. Like, we all knew, like, she was really, like, the beginning of her life was really starting for her. And because of her funny, charismatic, like, her, like, she was meeting famous people when she was working for BuzzFeed. Like, we saw her being like a funny, like, person who does like commentary stuff and interview style things. And we just saw really big things for her. And I just don't think she ever felt worthy or capable, or like she could live up to that expectation. And I mean, till this day, it's something that it still really, really bothers me. But what had happened when she took her life is it made me realize how much of the work that I had avoided when I was a kid, when I was trying to take care of my sister, and never really coming to terms with the fact that although I was like learning about nutrition and doing physical fitness and like trying to improve my life and becoming a registered dietitian, like, I never really did the inner work. So here I was trying to change my outside appearance, but still on the inside, never really feeling like I'd ever be thin enough or fit enough or whatever it was, because for so long I was running from that, because it was a sad feeling that I didn't want to go to and I didn't want to feel. And she'd made me realize that if I don't take control of my feelings, and if I don't do this work and I don't realize my self-worth, everything I'm doing is pointless. And so I really made a point from then forward. I mean, initially it was really hard because it put me back into that. It put me in a place where I didn't want to do anything. I didn't understand it. I was confused. I just felt like nothing made sense. She should be here. At that time I was 23 years old, and I just like, it's like I knew I should go back into like studying, and I knew I should go back to eating healthy, and I knew I should go back to exercising, but I just like couldn't make sense of anything when I was there. And so in that place, when I was kind of grieving and going through, her loss and just trying to process it all, something finally came to me and was just like, there's nothing that will ever bring her back. There's no way to make sense of it. I don't believe everything happens for a reason. I don't think that particular situation happened for a reason, but I'd be damned if I didn't make a reason come out of it, because it didn't make sense to me that she wasn't there. So through that, I had to keep her alive in some way. And so that's when her family and I created a Facebook page for her. We do walks where we raise money for suicide prevention and awareness on a yearly basis religiously. We actually just did it at FDR Park in Yorktown Heights. We do that every single year. But then we also will do kind of random ones throughout, but really just kind of pushing out that message that, we know that she was just hurting and she was sad. And I don't believe she didn't want to be here. I just think she was just feeling so lost, so scared, so unsure of her future, at a place where, to be honest, also I look back and like, nobody really prepares you for after college. Like, you're prepared for kindergarten, you're prepared for elementary, you're prepared for middle school and high school and college, but nobody really tells you what the next steps are after you graduate college. And I started to really take a look and realize, like, that's when people really are 150% on your own, and really you feel like this pressure of like needing to know who you are and what your worth is and like having it all figured out, because for so long you were a high school student or you were a college student or you were a graduate student. But like what happens when you go to real life and it's like, who are you? What is your intention in this world? And like there's a lot of stuff that goes through that, and I don't think that there's enough support in that. And so everything that I do now is just driven in the fact that I think that if you could take control of every day to just try to be your best self, whether that's through your nutrition, whether it's through your fitness, whether it's through journaling, whether it's through helping a friend, whether it's through being the best person at your job, or, you know, the best wife or like mom or daughter or whatever it is, like that has to be enough, because that's going to get you to the next day and the next day and the next day. And you have to remember, like, you matter and you have purpose, and there's a lot more to life than the dark times, because the dark times are going to be there, but we have to push through them so that way we can experience the many joys that life has to offer.
Man, well, first off, I just want to say that story was incredibly impactful. To be honest, I almost started choking up a little bit while you were telling it. But when you brought up the point where you don't think everything happens for a reason, but you kind of made a reason. I say that all the time, at least to myself. I don't think everything happens for a reason, but everything that does happen, you decide the reason afterwards that it did happen. That was kind of wordy, but I think it made sense.
Totally.
And obviously in that situation, you took something that was a terrible incident and made it into as much of a positive thing as you could, and let it be your why for doing what you're doing, and just getting the most out of other people, which I think is incredibly awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like I said, there's no other way to kind of go about it. I mean, like the other way would be really sad, and it's still sad and it's still depressing, right? But it's like you said, like we kind of have a choice at some point to just make the best of a really terrible situation. There's really nothing else to do, I feel like, at sometimes.
Yep. But now, kind of bringing the nutrition and mental health together to the best of your ability, can you explain how nutrition can have a role in someone's mental health?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I could sit here and talk about the science and the chemical processes and how on a cellular level eating healthier foods actually makes you happier, but I'm not going to do that. I really just want anybody listening to really think about like how they feel after they eat something with a lot of sugar or that's super fried, or not saying that those foods are off limits. Like last night me and my boyfriend, we went and we got ice cream, but I had a small, like a kid size, and we went for a walk after, right? So it's like, it's just a matter of thinking about like, how do you feel after you overindulge? How do you feel when you know that you could be drinking more water? Like when we drink more water, our energy levels are up and we probably feel better. When we eat more fruits and vegetables and things like whole grains, we tend to have more frequent bowel movements. And I'm sorry, but like if you're constipated, you're going to be in a bad mood. Like it's just like very normal, right? So it's like these little things that seem so insignificant play such a such a big role, because our mood dictates what we do, right? What we eat dictates how we feel, and how we feel dictates what we do, and what we do dictates who we are. So that's what I want most people, if anybody's listening, to take away from this is, yes, healthy eating scientifically, absolutely 100%, you're going to be a healthier, happier person as a result. But from the day-to-day thing, rather than thinking of like the long term of not having to get diabetes or high cholesterol or cancer or, irritable bowel problems, like all the things that are related to food, like forgetting about that alone, in the short term, when you skip meals and your energy's super low, are you going to have a productive, happy day, right? If you didn't eat because you've been so busy and now your spouse asks you a question and all of a sudden it pisses you off because you're hangry, like, is that going to make your life better, or is that only going to contribute to maybe you guys have been fighting and your life isn't where you expected it to be? Like, it's not so much about, yes, healthy food is good for me and that's why I should eat it. It's more about like, how is this making me feel? And then what is it dictating my life to become and life to be? Because we are basically accumulation of our choices. And that's like the main thing I want people to get away from this call is that, or from this episode, is that you have to really truly believe that every little choice that you make in your food choices, whether you decide to do your exercise or not, it impacts the next thing. And so we always want to continue to strive to stay in like that positive cycle rather than that negative one, like under eating, like I expressed when I was younger. I would undereat and then overeat and then undereat and then overeat, and it didn't help me in any way. Rather than making little small changes over time that really help to build your confidence, really help to form healthier habits, routines, and play a role in how you manage other areas in your life.
So, what are some general tips? And I say general because obviously, for the most part, when it comes to nutrition and everything really, it's never a one size fits all
Right.
deal. But to the best of your ability, some general practical tips people can take and apply to their lives to have their nutrition positively affect their mental health.
Absolutely. Well, number one thing that comes to mind is rethink your drink. So if you're consuming lots of sweetened beverages, iced teas, sodas, the fancy Starbucks beverages or Dunkin' Donuts, Frappuccinos, the Dunkachinos or whatever it is, we really have to think about like how often are we consuming these? And is it actually making me feel full, or is it bringing that immediate satisfaction to only kind of feel either guilty later or not realizing that we just drank 300 calories of straight sugar, which dietitians, we call those empty calories, meaning they don't have any no nutritional bang for your buck, in the sense of like you could have a large salad for 300 calories and have protein and vitamin A and vitamin C and like actually feel full and satiated for an next few hours, versus like drinking our beverages. That sugar high, although it makes you feel real good in the moment, you're going to crash later. So we really want to start to think about like, what are we drinking and how could we stay hydrated with mainly maybe water. Flavored seltzer is a good thing to do. You can do unsweetened iced teas or, black coffees with maybe just a little bit of sugar. Or I use cinnamon, like ground cinnamon. So really taking a look at like, where are those hidden sugars in your diet and how can you cut back? You don't have to go cold turkey, but if you put like 2 sugars in your coffee in the morning, maybe try doing 1. And believe it or not, your taste buds will slowly start to adjust to that and you'll be able to tolerate. Honestly, some days I don't even put anything in my coffee. It obviously depends on the type of coffee and the brand. I highly recommend Cafe Bustelo. It's much easier black than the others. But, those are little things that I think that that's pretty general. I don't think anybody can sit here and argue with me that if they didn't cut out if they cut out the sweetened beverages in their life, they'd somehow not be healthier as a result. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's definitely the one thing. The other thing I always tell people is when you like, are you eating enough vegetables? I would say a lot of people don't eat vegetables, whether because they don't know how to prepare them or they think canned vegetables or frozen vegetables are not healthy for them. So therefore the fresh produce might be a little bit more pricey or expensive. Maybe they just don't like them. So I really try to encourage people to try sneaking in your vegetables in any way that you can. Like cauliflower rice is a really fun thing. So, if you're someone who tends to overconsume rice, not that you can't have rice, but people might be overconsuming it, cutting it back with something like some rice cauliflower, or in their spaghetti, throwing in some zucchini noodles and getting a spiralizer and spiralizing the zucchini. And that's a way to sneak in your vegetables while also enjoying your pasta. Not being afraid of the frozen vegetables. Like I said, as long as if the ingredients are frozen broccoli, then it's just broccoli. And the great thing about that is it's been picked and frozen. So the texture and quality of the texture might not be as great and the flavor might not be as great as like a fresh broccoli roasted, but it's still just as nutritious, if not more so than your fresh broccoli. So it's a great way to kind of just like, if you're really pressed for time, get the frozen, like frozen vegetables, the steamable bags. I love them. You pop them in the microwave, throw it on your plate. And when you look at your plate, there should be some sort of color there, because each different colorful vegetable, whether it's green from the broccoli or orange from the carrots or purple from the eggplant, whatever it is, they're all bringing different sorts of nutrition to your body. And that's where you're really going to get the most out of what you eat. We have to stop looking at food as like this a reward, or like it's off limits or restrictive, and like, oh, it's going to make me lose weight or gain weight or all that, but instead looking at food as medicine and as fuel, and as a way of like, I'm going to treat my body the best way that I can, because so I can show up and be the best version of myself, whether it be with my friends or my family members. So those are pretty basics. I would say most people aren't drinking enough water, and they might be kind of drinking their calories rather than eating them. And then the other thing I see most common is most people are not eating enough vegetables. And so I would just encourage you to slowly start to add vegetables to the plate. And those, I think, are pretty general things that most people would be safe to do. And then anything else, if someone wants more specific guidelines, I'd be more than happy to help them out, because as simple as nutrition is, it can be quite complicated depending on what the goal is and who's asking.
Oh yeah, and there's so much bad information out there too, which makes it even harder. If people want to work with you or just get more tips, where can they find you?
I'm highly active on Instagram. I would say that's probably the best bet. So Instagram, it's tips_with_Toni, and that's Toni with an I. I also have my own podcast called Tips with Toni. I'm on Facebook. I have a healthy lifestyle support group on Facebook for those who are really kind of done jumping from diet to diet and yo-yo dieting and feeling really frustrated, and have decided to, you know what, instead of trying those quick fixes, the fad diets, the magic pills and potions, they're just going to commit to being the healthiest version of themselves. And so I have a support group there if anybody wants to join. Really active on there as well.
And they can find links to your Facebook and podcast through Instagram?
Yep. So on my Instagram, there's my website, www.tipswithtoni.com. You can find all that stuff. I would recommend messaging me. Let me know that whatever, I said resonated with you, and there's some things you can help with, and there's certain things that you need help with. And based off that, I could probably point you in the right direction of where to go.
All right, great. And once again, I just want to thank you for coming on and just doing what you're doing, helping people with something that, as you said, should be easier than it is, but with all the junk food out there and false information, makes it complicated for people that are not well educated in the nutrition field. So it's great that you're helping people with that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's important. It's partly the lack of education. I think also too, like the lack of support. So, because even sometimes when we know better, we don't always do better. And it might be because the people you're hanging around with don't have the same goal or values. And so that's where the support group and following, people like other dietitians on Instagram and stuff is very helpful, I think, because it keeps it top of mind of what's important.
Yep, definitely. But